Hi, we are
Hello.
Jason Douglas and Selena Rifkin with the Connecticut Common Sense podcast on Tuesday. We're looking forward to the holiday coming up, Independence Day. Hope everybody's got their flags out. And
hmm
Jason has been having a super exciting week. He's all rested up now and he wants to give a report, and we have lots of stuff to talk about. So tell
We,
us
we
all
do,
about
and
what you've been doing, Jason.
it's been one crazy week. It really has, and I'm sure many of you are listening are probably aware. But I was telling Selena, I was telling you earlier this morning. Other than the birth of my children, this has been the coolest week of my life, really. But yet the scariest at the same time, in a way. Not scary, but just very strange.
Mm,
And I was saying earlier that as you get, I value time more than money. That's always been me. Time is more important than money. And as you get older, people get older, they find that I also value something even more than time. I call them firsts. Now, when you're a kid and a young adult, you're doing lots of things for the first time. But as you get older, in your 40s and 50s and older, there's those firsts go away. There's very few things that happen for the first time. You've done most of these things before. So, what I experienced in running for chair against Ben Proto was definitely gave me a lot of new firsts. And
hmm
that's what I liked about it. Well, being involved politically at that level first, and having somebody throw a party for me and down at that dealership, Rocky threw a party for me down at a dealership. I wasn't even there. That's a first. Lots of new firsts, and but I'm going to tell you a little bit about. And there's a point to all of this, and the theme of our podcast today is about um, helping getting the job done, about what's needed to flip the state red, and it's more than just votes. I'm going to tell you a little bit about how this all happened, how I became running for chair against Ben Proto the way I did.
Yeah, yeah, I think a lot of people would love some clarity on that, right from the horse's mouth, if you will.
Sure, sure. And so I'll say one thing. I'm a confident person, so I don't count myself on out of anything. So there was never a moment where I didn't think I at least had a little bit of a chance to win, even if I might have been wrong about that, but I certainly had the confidence to believe there was a chance. And I actually maybe a little bit too much faith in some of the committee members to stand up and do the right thing. But um, we were looking for someone to run against Ben. You know, the
Hmm
thought myself, and this dovetails to this is going to lead to the theme. I'm going to give away the theme a little bit here in advance. We need volunteers. We need people to help with our movement because there's so much to do, and there's a core group of us that really want to do it, and we're getting a lot of support. Well, we need people to help, and I'm going to tell you how it went to this. How I became someone to help. um, I never thought about running for anything immediately. Maybe down the road, but never what gave much thought. It was more about getting the grassroots going, volunteering, and just trying to flip the state. And we were in the party bus, the Trump bus, right? That's been going around the state. I met up with them down in Shelton, which is a week ago, Thursday, I believe, which was only 5 days before the election for the chair.
Seems like 2 weeks ago.
It seems like 6 months ago at this
Yeah,
point.
yeah. Now I'm
But
sure it's even longer for you.
yeah, but not that doesn't mean it in a bad way. But anyway, we were discussing the chair and the things that he doesn't do and whatnot. And I said, geez, someone's got to run for me. Maybe I'll just do it. And the next thing I know, I'm, I got a microphone in my face and he's running for Ben. Okay, well, and just the tension that I had never received. And I just said, you know what? I said, I might as well go with it. Now, I don't want people to know that never for a moment, one of the biggest criticisms I hear is I didn't take it seriously. That's not true. It would have been a major game changer pulling that off. And I certainly not for a moment didn't think it was possible. Although looking back at it, maybe it wasn't possible, given the closed nature of the way they do things and the undemocratic way they do things. It probably might have been, but I never didn't believe it, at least somewhat. But as time went on, I knew the odds were against me. And so a new motive developed secondarily now to the original motive to win was to send a message to the committee to make the public aware of what type of a lacking of representation they really have. What make the public Republicans voters aware
Mhm.
specifically of the kind of lack of effort that's being done by their party, by the leaders of the party, and I think we were successful in that regard.
Hmm.
Um, and so, given that's the objective, I think I did the right thing. Um, One of the things they say is, "Oh, you don't know the process. How can you don't know the process?" Well, it
We
wouldn't
all,
have helped me.
I'm gonna interject here
It
that
wouldn't have helped me to know the
even know what,
process.
yeah, it wouldn't have helped,
It wouldn't
but
have
we
helped.
didn't even know, we only got involved in this 6 months ago. So the
Right.
fact that you stepped up and did something, yeah, it was a Hail Mary. So what? Nothing ventured,
Hmm.
nothing gained.
Right. Right. And as a result, I met a lot of interesting people that I hadn't met before.
Mm-hmm.
We've grown our movement as a result of
Yes,
that. The base of our movement has, you know, some core people we've added to it, like Court Rocknowski, who's a really good guy, real estate guy. He was a Tea Party guy,
he's
you
going to be
know,
on the podcast in a bit. So
and
we've
he's going
got,
to be on our podcast at some point soon as a guest, right?
yes.
Um, Soon probably. And he was one of the founders of the original Tea Party movement, which was a response to the election of Barack Obama, essentially,
Hmm.
and the destructive economic policies that were done under his administration. And so, and we have some great ideas, and a lot of good things are going to happen. But for the point is, I guess what I'm trying to make is one of the things I'm noticing that is holding people back. What is the bridge that needs to be crossed for an individual, a rank and file, regular Republican voter, we the people, just like us, to go from rooting us on the sidelines to maybe doing a little something to help? And what is that? Well, one of them is concern of the other side, backlash of exposing yourself to your friends. I'm sure a lot of people, especially older people, have a lot of friends. My mother's one of them.
Mm.
A lot of friends that they don't talk politics. They just talk about
Right.
bridge and coffee and tea. And you almost rather not have it come up because the way things are these days, it creates rifts and friendships. So
Yeah.
um,
It's
those
hard.
things want to be. And so I think one of the major things that people hesitate that keep people as passive activists away from actually taking action, helping out, is that they don't want their affiliation to be known to their friends and the family around. It might create a lot of rift. And unfortunately, it's very unfortunate that our country has become like that. It was not like that when we were growing up.
No, it wasn't.
And that's one of the major things. So it's important for people who we had a woman step forward just this morning to volunteer. That's
Hmm.
great. It's wonderful, but we need more. We need like a half a dozen of really good people that really want to, and it's database entry that we need. I want people to understand we're not looking for people to get involved. Well, we want people to run for office, of course, and we'll talk about that at another time. But
Okay.
really now it's the groundwork that is really needed. So there's so many, my head is spinning all the time. All these ideas, all these, and there's an infrastructure that's a really solid, strong networking infrastructure that's needed throughout the state in order to get the reforms that we need from the ground up.
Hmm.
And that means flooding the RTCs, like we've talked about. That means and data entry. A simple thing is data entry. Data entry is something that a volunteer can do from home, without them even people knowing who they are. There's another thing people are concerned about is backlash. Well, if the other side finds out I'm doing this, I could, down the road there could be trouble. Blah blah blah. You're working from home. You don't have to give us even your name, really. Just Excel, Microsoft Word. Another thing is there's so much to be done. Really, I know people are busy. Even just an hour a week. If you just spend 1 hour a week sitting at the computer doing database entry for us, half an hour, a couple times a week. If we have 50 people putting in a half an hour a week, well, that's the same thing as one person putting in 25 hours a week.
Hmm. A little
So
bit really does go a long way.
a little bit really does truly go a long way. And
Yeah.
it's the problem that really the biggest obstacle right now, and what we're trying to do in this movement is the lack of um, time to do these underlying foundational things
Yes.
that help solidify our network and make it effective. In other words, I'll just give you an example. I keep talking about the profiles I'm going to come out with. Well, I've built most of them, but I haven't. There's still much to do. I just simply have not been able to find the time to sit down and do it all. I'm running a business too, and there's only one of me. It's 24 hours a day. But I guess, and then to ask another person, a regular Republican, to come over forward and spend even 5 hours a week is a lot to ask.
Yeah.
You know, so we're not asking that. We're asking maybe for 30 minutes a week. An hour a week or something.
Right.
And if you don't want to do, and then beyond that, if you're not worried about it, go to the RTC meetings like we talked about. But data entry is honestly the major thing right now that if we can't get that done, we'll never be able to connect all the dots like we want to do. We know what to do. It's just a matter of getting it done. And so I myself tend to think I can do too much sometimes. I have 1,000 things I know. I can do them all. Look at she's laughing at me. See? and I think I can do them all the time, and they can't all get done. So I have to prioritize my own, and Selena just the same, and John, he'll be back. They all have the same. We all have the same problem. Like we all think we can do things, but I'm not very good at knowing it. So I have to pick my battles. Like in other words, I guess what I'm saying is I really can't do the data entry. I just don't have the. It won't get done if we don't have some help. So please step forward. You can text me. I'll give you my number right here, 860-982-6654. Okay, repeat it, 860-982-6654. You can text me directly. Say, hey, my name is Joe Schmo, and I want to help with data entry. And then what can you offer? How much time can you offer? Even if it's 15 minutes a part of your night routine. Sit down for 15 minutes a night. I can do a lot of data entry in 15 minutes. So I'm sure most of you can too. So even if it's just a little bit, and we are going to form a political action committee, and we're going to eventually need donations to make this thing really grow. We're going to have rallies around the state. And so we will be asking for money at some point, but it's really not right now. It's not really money what we want. It's really more, just a little time, a little effort. And
Yeah.
if you show up at the rally, if you can, if there's a rally that's going on or an event that's going on, Cadillac Ranch events are going to be happening every month, I believe. Take the time and come down for an hour. Take the time. Let's grow those crowds a little bit.
Yeah.
I think the next one's on the 26th. I mean, I'm not sure, but we'll find out soon enough. And just take a little bit of time. We're not asking anybody to dive right in, and we know how it's a catch-22, isn't it, Selena? The economics of the Connecticut state government are so oppressive on American or Connecticut middle class families right now that
It is
there's all
hard.
this
That is
this
the then
strain.
that is honestly that's the other barrier is people.
Yeah,
Oh my
so
God,
all
I
this
don't.
concentrate and hard work,
I know. Yeah, it really it looks overwhelming.
and
And
that's the 20. That's
and
the
that's
catch
the other
22
piece.
about it because you got to dig even harder, work even harder to unleash to fix the government to let the pressure off of everybody.
So I want to
So
talk a little
it's like
bit
you have a
about.
messy room.
I want to talk a little bit
You,
about what the actual plan is that we have.
yeah, please. Let's do
We're
that.
still sorting exactly what kind of nonprofit organization we're going to be. We have somebody who's doing some research on that. And we're going to need somebody to be a treasurer to do that. I know I'm probably going to end up secretary. And whether or not we end up with one organization or two organizations, again, we're still figuring out what the structure is going to look like. We have someone
Mhm.
researching that. So that's on deck.
And
Um,
that really depends on if somebody's running for office from our group or not. That's going to be the big
well,
thing. If we actually have
not
people that are
technically
appointed
really. And
candidates.
there's a lot of options, and there's a lot of options in how we can approach this and how we're going to be the most effective. And we're still sorting that a little bit, but we're on track. This is in process. We're building, the business plan is getting built. We have rough draft plans of action that we're working on. The main one right now is that we are going to continue doing the podcast because we want to make sure one of the big issues in Connecticut is that we just don't have the media that we need. We don't,
Mhm.
we're not getting this slant on most media is dreadful. And I'm going to encourage everyone again to go support the Connecticut Sentinel because they are supporting conservative viewpoints. It's a little bit per month, and they are worth spending the money on. Um, but I think this podcast is share the podcast. That also really helps. Share the newsletter. Because the more ways
Mhm.
we have to get the word out of what's going on, the more people we can talk to. This is about outreach. This is really about outreach and changing the conversation in Connecticut. So
Yeah.
the other piece, so that's the first piece because that is both of our, that's a big focus for both of us. But the RTC piece is that we need people in every town to go to their RTC meeting and
Don't go
ideally
alone.
report back to us so that we
Yep.
know where those people are at. We can't go to every town. We know, for example, we know some towns have really great effective RTCs, and we keep bringing up Middletown, for example, and they're doing
There.
a great job. Shelton is doing a great job. So what we want to do is we want to find out which RTCs are really good. We want to go to those RTCs and ask them what they're doing. Try and find out what best practices are. What are you doing that's working? And then and then the next step is go to towns that are struggling a little bit, but that could be turned, lean towards the red. Let's see what we can do to build those up. It's got to start with the ones that are actually working, and then we spread outward from there. But we've got 169 towns in Connecticut. That's 169 RTCs. We cannot
Mhm.
go to everyone physically. We need people on the ground. And the truth is, individuals need to be involved in their own, meetings. And I'm going to
Yeah.
warn you that the first RTC meeting you go to is either going to be horribly boring because you don't know anything about Robert's Rules of Order and how a meeting is run, because we don't learn that. And we're starting to play with that a little. We don't know anything about that. We're going to be learning about that. That's going to be really
Yeah.
exciting, because if you have a treasure, you have to have meeting minutes. You have to do all the things. It's important.
It's
We will
easy stuff. Once you get there, it's easy stuff to catch on to, though.
Yeah, it's not complicated.
Yeah, it's not hard. It's
Not
nothing to be.
complicated. It's
No.
just like, what's going on here? So it's either going to be boring because of that, or they aren't using Robert's Rules of Order and they're going to spend a lot of time talking about some weird detail that you had no idea what the heck is going on. So
Waste of time. Yeah.
yeah,
It's
so
that all it is that stuff that, oh, I carry this motion second.
there's that. But then there's the other piece
It's that kind
of,
of stuff.
I've
That's
also heard
basically what it is.
stories about, RTCs just being a nice drinking club. So,
Yeah. Or not,
that,
or not at all. They don't even meet at all
or there
sometimes.
is none, like, in my
But
town.
most of it, even the good ones, only meet what, once a month, right?
Yes,
So,
but again, it's
so
like
that's not a lot
we're asking
for a
for,
volunteer
right,
standpoint. It's
from
just
a
once a
volunteer
month we're asking for
standpoint.
you.
Yeah, we're asking for, a couple hours of your time at that one point in the month.
Yep.
Go, you just go and report back and tell us what's going on.
Hmm.
And I will add an email to this, but there's always an email in the show notes, so you can use that email. Please contact us and let us know if you're doing this, or just go and do it and tell us how it went, because that would be great too. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. You don't have to call
so
us beforehand. Just go and then let us
yeah,
know afterward how it
just
went
let
if you
us know.
want.
Because this is important. We need information. We need to know what's working. We need to know what's not working. Because apparently as much as the Connecticut GOP has some really great tools, they're not getting applied. And, maybe and you know what? The main, what are the things the parties say about Connecticut? And this is something that I heard from a state central member was, oh, Connecticut's just so scattered and the people just don't care. I'm like, well, I don't think it's that people don't care. I'm pretty sure that everybody cares about what the heck is going on in their own lives.
Of
This,
course.
we all care about taxes. We all care about these electricity bills. Anybody who's listening to this is going to care about men and women's sports and what's happening with children
All
and
right.
sorts of
They
other,
care very much about it. It's not that they don't. It's not that they don't care. It's just they don't even know, don't think they can help,
right.
or don't know how to help, or or worried about it. Don't
Yeah.
they?
Or the
And a lot of
concern.
people are concerned about the negative side of help being involved,
Yeah.
which there's
So this is our state, and let's take it back. So
right.
Jason stepped up there and did a very cool thing, whether or not he planned to do it or not.
And that's the best way to beat Ben, by the way.
Sometimes it is, yeah. And
No. I mean, by going to the RTC meetings and building up presence in these committees, these local committees over time, and it's ultimately those committees that elect the committee members that go to the state central that elect Ben Proto.
exactly.
So the
Yeah.
way to get toxic people like that out is, you could try it my way. And next, but believe me, 2 years from now, we're gonna have somebody else running against them. It won't be me, but it'll be somebody else running against them, and they'll be prepared, and they
There
will.
are people who I think were thinking about it. I mean,
Sure.
there were rumors that there was somebody else who was going
You
to
kept
run.
hearing that,
Back
yeah.
down. But there's a fellow in Arizona, his last name is Schultz, and one of what he did was this is the tactic they used. They just got conservatives to show up at RTC meetings. I'm specifically using the words conservative because there is a certain values system that matters here and
Hmm.
that the Republican Party has drifted away from. The current platform of the RNC is something that the Connecticut GOP has pretty much been ignoring, unless they
Yeah,
want to wave that flag. And
yeah, just for lip service.
yeah,
But you
yeah,
see how here's how it's all connected, right? People go to the RTC meetings, they send us information, and then that information has to get plugged into a database.
yeah,
So they can also see how it's all connected, see?
yeah,
So what we need mainly are people to attend their local RTC meetings and then maybe 15, 20 minutes a night or even 30 minutes a week with help with data entry. So
oh,
if we can get that going over the next several weeks, and it's not something data entry work is something that we need immediately over the next couple of months. But once it's done, then it's done. We don't need as much data entry work, and what we need is data maintenance at that point, which
yeah.
is a lot less time consuming, and it's actually more
Change
interesting.
over time. What we need is going to change over time.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. So it will be more boots on the ground and more door to door stuff down the road. But right now, it's the foundation that we're building. Is really what's important. Now, as far as these committee members are concerned, there's a lot of different opinions among all of even us about. Some are telling me don't trust any single one of those committee members. They're all using you, blah blah blah. And then others I want to work with the 15 or 20 or so MAGA guys that are and women that are in the committee that are kind of lying low because Ben's the toxic way that Ben runs the committee is it's personality driven. It's one hand washes the other, and he ditch me, I'll ditch you type of thing, and they have to live within that. So while at first I even called one of them a coward to his face on the phone
Hmm.
indirectly. I said, "Don't be a coward." I said, "Don't Is one person stand was not a coward." Stand with this. So now though, in thinking about it more, I do understand the position they're in. They don't want to, put themselves, they're forced into this position by a toxic chair.
Yeah.
And so they're trying to navigate the best they can, hoping down the road there'll be more of them enough to take him on. And until there are, they're gonna do this, which is
Yeah.
why that's the exact reason why I didn't get a nomination.
Yep.
So what we need to do, rather than write them all off and say we can't trust them, we want to work with the ones that we can because they will help us build the party outside of the committee.
I would
And then
like to, I think this is a good point too, because I wanted to tie into some history here, some Connecticut history. Um, because we had there are three men from, yeah, I'm sorry, they were men, not women. What do you want? It was the times. So we had three men from Connecticut who signed the United States Constitution. And I've been taking some time to learn about this because I think we need to know about Connecticut history. But one of them was actually not, he was actually in favor of reconciling with England. And he was, let's see, which one was it here? I have notes.
was his name Lamont?
I know his name was not Lamont.
Yeah.
No, his name was William Johnson.
Ned Lamont the first. Okay.
No, stop it. Down, Jason. Uh,
Okay.
his name was William Johnson. He was born in Stratford and he went to Yale. And he didn't actually think that we should go for independence. He was very cautious about that. Um, but he was also willing to listen,
Hmm.
and he eventually changed his mind and signed the Constitution. He was, Connecticut, some of our listeners may not know, Connecticut was institutional. We were the people from Connecticut were the ones that introduced the idea of a bicameral legislature.
That's
Connecticut
correct.
is why we have representation of the people in the House of Representatives and representation of the states in the Senate. Now that's changed a little bit
I
because
want to interject
go
real
ahead.
quick on that. People don't realize that the House of Representatives was meant to represent the people and equally
Mm,
districts by population, whereas the Senate was meant to represent the states,
right,
50
yes.
states. In other words, the state government of Montana had two senators representing that state, not the
And
people of
how did
Montana.
that change? Because I'll bet you can tell us.
Changed with an amendment to the Constitution in the early 20th century, I believe.
Was it
That changed.
was that the 17th? The
I
17th,
think so. It was the next one after the one of the Civil War, I believe.
16th or the
And what
16th.
it did, the senators were elected as was appropriate by the state legislatures, not
Yes.
by the people, and that got changed, and that's what turned the Senate into a popular vote, which sounds like a more democratic thing, but actually it's kind of screwed up the system the way it was meant to be.
Yeah.
But go
That
ahead.
not what they had in mind at
Not what
all.
they had in mind. No.
Yeah. So the interesting thing about William Johnson is that he was an Anglican or Episcopalian, depending on how you want to look at that. And at the time, Connecticut was um, it was a religiously run state. We were we were a theocratic state, and the religion of the time was Congregationalist. So William Johnson he was like a minority, and his
Mm-hmm.
taxes were going to fund the Congregationalist church. And yet here he was still working within this system.
Right.
So, and I thought that was very cool. And the next guy was Roger Sherman. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and he's a self-educated lawyer. If you can imagine such a thing, you didn't actually used to have to go to school to be a lawyer.
It's true. And in some states, it's technically still true.
Cool.
Not Connecticut. Not in Connecticut,
Not
though.
Connecticut. No,
No, of
definitely
course
not
not.
Connecticut.
In some states, you pass the bar, you're in. That's it.
Wow. Nice. Nice. Well,
That sounds easy, but it's not.
well, no, no, you got to pass the
Yeah,
bars.
you gotta pass the bar.
You got to pass the
You got
bar.
to go to your own college if you're going to pass the bar. If you're not going to go to
Well,
college,
or
college.
you got to be very serious about that self-education.
Yeah,
Just,
right.
you know. So Roger Sherman was self-educated lawyer. He was a Congregationalist. And the interesting thing about Congregationalism is that it's a covenant-based religion system where you step in and you are making agreements in front of a group of people that this is who you're going to be and how you're going to behave.
Yeah.
And it was very civic minded. And of course it was, yes, it was all men at that point. So again, you have to give that nod to history and look at things in context. But
Hmm.
as I think the Congregationalists have something, from that basis to share with us. I mean, my mother was raised in a Congregationalist church. They're still all over, they're still around. A lot of them ended up in the UUs, Universalist Unitarians.
Hmm.
Um, but it was, the idea was that if you were there, you were a member of the community and you were serving. And it was important. And all of these guys served in a bunch of different capacities. None of them stayed in the legislature. None of these three guys we're talking about stayed in the legislature. They all served in legislature, but they did not stay for any length of time. They
Hmm.
they were in there for a little while and then they went off and did their other thing. And
Right.
what if we all did something like that? It's like, all right, you go serve in your legislature for a little while and then you go do whatever it was you were doing.
Sure.
We've got a model for this right now. Um, so one of the things about Roger Sherman was that Benjamin Franklin called him an honest man whose ideas were grounded in common sense. We like common sense around here.
Right.
And he was plain spoken, but he was a brilliant negotiator. Sound like anyone we know?
Yeah. DJ.
And the last one was Oliver Ellsworth, and he was also a lawyer. He went to what would eventually become Princeton, and he also supported that Connecticut Compromise that it allowed us to have a bicameral legislation. And he was also helpful he was part of the formation of our judiciary system. And he was a member of what was called the Committee of Detail, which is what turned the resolutions that had been put together into the document that we know today. They
Mhm.
didn't change anything, but they had to make the words incredibly clear and detailed. And I really, really want to write a little essay on him and the Second Amendment. So
Yeah.
there is a lot of discussion about that one and like, oh, it means this, it means that. It meant exactly, we're very particular. It meant exactly what they meant it to mean.
Yeah. The words mean what they mean.
Yeah. They
Fine.
weren't just tossing out.
There's not supposed to be any restrictions on firearms. Not supposed to be any.
Yeah.
Now, given the nature of modern weaponry that we have now, I can understand there being certain. We
I
don't
can,
want everyone to have their own nuke in their refrigerator. You know what I
no,
mean?
no one's gonna have a nuke in the refrigerator.
Well,
That's
I mean, listen, as time goes on, any new technology
right.
becomes more and more known and spread. So even the nuke was first invented in what 1944, and as time goes on, it's only inevitable that that technology will become more and more leaked, and more governments and people will have access
Probably,
to it.
I'm pretty sure no one's gonna have a gun that shoots nukes, but
No, but
yeah. But
well, listen.
that's
When I was a kid, the idea of having something that could actually read minds seemed like total science fiction. But now they're developing that technology too.
yay.
So
My son.
you never know what you're going to get. So I guess the point is the Second Amendment needs to be protected at the end of the day.
Yeah.
In Connecticut, I'm going to make a little bold statement about Connecticut right now. There is no the citizens of Connecticut right now, on paper, have all of their rights.
Hmm.
In practice, you got none.
Hmm.
You have no rights as a citizen of Connecticut right now, as far as our state government is concerned. They
Hmm.
will grant them to you as they see fit, and if they want to yank it, hello, John Flynn.
Yeah.
Or if they want to shut you down, put you away, and forget about all your rights, they will just do it, and they don't care. Especially with the rules, sometimes they just state it. Now, if you even, if somebody you say one wrong word and they don't like you, they'll come take your gun out of your house, make you turn your gun. You know, so you really have no
Not
rights in
making an
practice.
argument for involvement here, you know.
I know, but no. Well, I guess what I'm saying though is no. This is my argument for involvement. So
I know, it is mine too. I'm
it
just
is time to stand up, and the good news is once again, I know for sure that every time I see someone go through a precarious intersection in their car, I know that people are cautious and want to be safe and don't want to get too involved because they're worried about backlash or anything, even just their friends turning on them, whatever it is. Again, lots of this work can be done anonymously from home.
mhm.
Nobody even has to know that you're doing, except me or Selena, really. And just send us back the stuff, and then that gets plugged into the information we're getting from the RTCs. And then by the end of the summer, early fall, everything starts to come together. You guys, it's going to be a beautiful thing. You guys will see it. And
We're pretty
and
excited about it.
it's really
It's actually,
there's a lot of problems with election integrity we've been talking about. We're working on that right now. We're making progress
yeah,
there.
we actually have a guest coming in on
Yep,
Tuesday for that. We've got an
about that.
integrity guest on Tuesday. So
Really
that's
look forward to that. And then we're looking to cut down and eliminate as much election fraud as we can. We're not going to be able to eliminate all of it, but maybe enough so that we can kick in the too big to rig. See,
yeah.
so the more people we can get out registered to vote, we can too big to rig it. A lot of these things that they use to cheat on elections are meant to some of them are meant to put them over the edge if it's close. So if we can just get too many votes,
Yeah.
there's not much we
I'd
can do.
actually, I know, I'd like to see towns making the decision to not to hand count votes.
Yeah, use paper ballots, not machines.
It's totally legal to do that. It is not in no way against the Constitution of the state.
Yep.
It's in the Constitution. What it says is towns may use voting machines, not that they
Yeah.
have to. And
Correct.
it's yes, there's procedure for it, and maybe we can get somebody on that talks about hand counting votes. I can look into that.
Don't
Because
use the new machines that they're trying to sell off to the
yeah,
towns to help it.
and don't buy this thing that's like, oh, they're not connected to the internet at all. I will tell you that I just had a nice conversation with a registrar of voters who went through the training. They tell them, nope, they're not connected to the internet. So the first thing they do is they give them a clean flash drive. Who knows if it's clean? And then the first thing you do is you plug it into a computer so
Yeah.
that then you go to a website where it gets programmed and then you plug it into the machine. I'm not sure how you can make an argument that that is not connected, that's not connected to the internet. I'm like,
And even if it's not connected to the internet, it doesn't mean that it can't be rigged easily.
but
Computers could be
yeah,
a couple
yeah.
keystrokes.
And it isn't, I also know that what the procedure they are advocate that they're saying this is how the new machines work, that it's not necessary for them to do that.
Yeah.
There's what you do is you have a blank machine. Now, of course, that would mean they'd have to have another machine, and then they use that machine to program the others, but that machine being literally not connected. But
Right.
at the same time, we still don't know what that would be, what that would look like. And it's like, how many of us are tech savvy to know whether, what the heck any of these things are doing? So hand counting, and towns could just do this. There are towns in Maine right now that are, the school board is saying, nope, no men and women's sports. Yeah, there's only two sexes. You have to be, young females are going to be protected in their
Hmm.
bathrooms. And
Most towns.
towns, yeah, towns are just doing this. And I have to find out which towns in Maine, but there's a couple of them now where the school boards have just said, no, we're going to obey federal law.
Yeah.
So there's no reason towns in Connecticut couldn't do the same thing with voting. And towns
Right.
in Maine could do the same with voting too. It's like anybody could do this. It's
Yes.
okay. You're
Yeah.
allowed.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah,
That's
it's
right.
all right. So
Then you got those old-fashioned machines that use paper ballot, and it just counts the paper ballot. You can use those. That's fine.
I
It's all
wouldn't do
mechanical.
that.
It's all mechanical.
Hmm.
The old ones that they have. I mean, not the.
Oh, yeah, the real.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
just mechanical. It's
yeah,
use a
but
laser.
I imagine there's a way to do it without. I think that
Sure. The
uh
best thing to do is hand count everything. But
yeah, I mean it's not, the procedure is not that complicated.
no,
It's
no,
just, you just need to have
it's
people
not that
paying
cumbersome in small
attention to
town.
it.
Not
Right.
that cumbersome.
Yeah, I mean, I have volunteered at voting booths. I would totally volunteer to do that.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's another option, show up,
Call your votes. Call if
collect.
you do have time on your hands. Call your local voter registrar and ask them how they're, protecting voter integrity. See what they say.
Yeah, yeah, because there's still towns in Connecticut that
Aren't
don't want to
listening.
pay attention to FOIA requests, freedom of
Our
information
own
requests.
The
So
worst offender in not paying attention to is once again Ben Proto and the state central committee, who many of them deny it's even happening,
yeah,
which
yeah,
is way
we have
beyond.
receipts. Yeah, we've
You
got,
have yeah,
yeah,
it's
and
happening.
from more than one organization, because
Look, we would have won the last governor's race would have been won if it wasn't rigged.
yeah. So yeah, that's going to be an interesting. Yeah.
So that's the main theme of today's podcast. Really, is just to get people involved, even
Yeah.
in this, like I said, even in the smallest of scale.
Hmm.
If at a baseball game when the game's over, they send 500 employees to around pick up the trash in the seats that the people leave, and it takes like 30 minutes.
Yeah. It's nothing.
Imagine if one guy had to do all that. So we're not asking you to do all that. We need a bunch of people just do a little bit at a time. That's really it. Just a little here, a little there, and some people are starting to come forward. So that's really good news.
It is.
And
And we're
it is, and we need that. Without that, we can't. Without
we appreciate
that
it.
foundation and that glue, we can't. Yeah, and then you know what? It'll make you feel good too, because I know many of you, all of you, most of you are feeling the frustration of what's happening in Connecticut.
Yeah.
And honestly, it really to me like to get involved, like when I ran for chair, and to be just since last November when I started getting involved, talking to meeting people, and whenever something happens that makes progress, and you turn in a bunch of data entry you did, and that's going to get plugged in, it's going to help the candidates. It really does make you feel good inside.
It does.
You know,
And
it really
I'm gonna
does.
make a
It's
plug
just
for
wow, like you really actually
meeting.
did something to help. You know.
I'm gonna make a plug for meeting really cool people, because
Yeah.
I haven't had this much fun having conversations in like years. And maybe it's just because I can just open my mouth and talk. And I
Yeah.
don't have to worry about censoring myself. And
You know,
like, I feel like my brain can live. I think I didn't realize how choked I felt in the last few years. And
that's great. And the people, yeah, because the people around us, the conservative people around us, are open minded, freedom loving
yeah,
people, and
yeah,
they're good, wholehearted people that can
yeah.
even this guy that I met a couple guys that are pretty rich dudes, and then I'm like jiving, I'm joking with them and stuff.
And even though it's
You
a
know, and
conservative,
they're cool with it. People have sense of
yeah,
humor.
yeah, they do. And I will add, for the people who are, you know, there's this idea that conservatives are all Christians and they're all really tight-laced and stuff like that. Neither Jason nor I are Christian. And we have been happily, easily, and in a very relaxed and interested and open way interacting with people who have strong Christian beliefs. And that has been,
Sure.
it's a joy. It's wonderful. It's great.
Yes.
Like,
It's
because
okay.
it's not the same
So
as,
even though like
yeah,
just because someone's not doesn't go to church and doesn't really identify too much as Christian, it doesn't mean they don't hold many of the values of
right.
Judeo-Christian values deeply. And I do, like I love having Sundays off. Uh, no, and then no, more than just that. Like the golden rule, due to unders, the things that
Right.
Jesus Christ preached, I think are great. I mean, there's many. So this isn't something where I'm definitely not anti-religion and everything. I'm agnostic, is what I am. For the most part.
Well, I
I
mean,
don't know. I mean,
what I,
you know what? You don't get to my way with it. I
mm,
want to believe. I want to believe. I want to believe in these things, and I tend to defer toward my to being faithful. But because as an investigator and as my mind is created analytically, and so I'm stuck in this mental state of looking for evidence and proof,
mm,
and so I don't get a lot of it for that. So it's just that's
we
the
should have
struggle for
a
me.
conversation at some point because
Yeah,
that's
it's another time, another place.
because I could talk you. I might be able to talk you into something that would be interesting.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, so it would
Right.
be
So I
fun.
have faith, but it has to be a little more concrete for me to like to not struggle with it. I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and yeah, and I totally get that balance between it's gotta make sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
And
gotta make sense. It
and as
actually
long
has to
as
make sense.
and I tend to concentrate more on what is around me, like what's happening here in Connecticut, the things I'm seeing that
Yeah,
to try to fix it. And I'm assuming that if I do well and do good by people and do the right things, that when my time comes, that I'll be duly
you'll be okay.
I'll be okay.
Yeah.
I'm
But
banking on that.
I wanna talk about what holds us all together, and that's the Western values, much of which is based in Christianity, and
Yes.
some of which is based in ancient Greece, like the freedom of speech is based in ancient Greece. How we think about the fairness of our judiciary is that again, that comes from ancient Greece. And then a lot of the straight up behavioral stuff is, and
Mhm.
what not to do is obviously from ancient Judaism. And then what to do is like the Beatitudes. It's like, be like this, be like that. We have the Beatitudes. So all of these things coming together is we're, what unites us. And these things are like, right now, they're more important. I mean, think about the Congregationalists who eventually they gave up, um, they ended up surrendering their grip on the state of Connecticut. And in 1818, there was a new constitution because there were other religions and there were changes to Congregationalism. There was the Great Awakening. And
Mhm.
so there were also new ideas that came in. And so the Congregationalists couldn't be anymore the ones that were completely holding on to power. And so
Right.
they had to figure out how to get along with the Anglicans and and the other
Catholics. Catholics.
the Catholics, yes, Catholics. So
Baptists. Presbyterians.
Presbyterians, oh my God, the
Lutherans.
Presbyterians.
Lutherans.
Yeah. So they had to
Jehovah's
figure out how to
Witnesses.
get along. And the way they did that was they found something that was more important, that something that they could reach for that was more important than, their individual personal beliefs about, how to behave here, there, or the other. It's
What
like,
they had in common. What they had in common
yeah, yeah,
too.
they had to look at what was in common, and that's what we all need to do is figure
Hmm.
out what we have in common, and then that's where we have to go from. And Western values are what got us here. This is how we got here. This is how we
That's
got
right. It's
incredibly
what led to
wealthy
it's what led
society.
to our. It's the reason why what we consider to be poverty in America. You could
Yeah.
be considered to be in poverty in America and have a TV and a cell phone and a perfectly
Hmm.
working stove and a
Right.
place to
Yeah.
live
Yeah.
and food to eat, and
Refrigerator,
you're still in poverty.
air
Whereas,
conditioning.
yeah, so if you were to take someone from, say, Somalia or Cambodia or even Romania or something, and
Mhm.
bring them into a house and say, yeah, these people live under poverty,
Yeah.
they would laugh at you. They wouldn't believe
Right.
it.
Yeah.
Okay, poverty overseas means you're
Something
probably
completely
dying
different. Yeah.
in a ditch somewhere. If you have a house and a cell phone and a TV, you're probably in some countries you're rich.
Yeah. So
You're certainly not in
gratitude
poverty.
matters.
So people have to understand how lucky we are here in America, and
Yeah.
people have to understand how lucky we are to have the lifestyle we live here in Connecticut, and why we have it, and why it's threatened,
Yes.
and why we need people's help just to make sure we keep it. And it's winnable. It's winnable.
It is wonderful.
It is winnable. Yep. So I think I have to go back to work here. We're gonna wrap it up. You have anything else on your mind?
I think we're there.
We're gonna start with this fall. We're gonna start with we're gonna, well, not this fall. We're gonna be having a lot of guests coming up. We're gonna working on guests. I've been working on that with you We have a ton of them actually lined up. We just got to get them coordinated. So a lot of people want to be on the show. Good people. We're good. I'm gonna work. And I've got Star Power. We're gonna work on a couple people. I think my next cell phone book guy might be Newt Gingrich.
Oh.
Yeah, Newt's a good dude.
I wonder if he'll remember me.
He might.
Right.
Sharp guy, but he's getting old, so we don't
Well,
want to get him. We want to pick his brain while he's still sharp, you know.
yeah. Yeah, he was great. So
Okay, well, if that's all,
I think we're good. All right.
God bless America, God bless Connecticut. Love you guys all, and we'll see you on Thursday, right?
Yes.
We're gonna do one before on
Thursday.
Thursday.
Yep, we can do something on Thursday. Don't
Sounds
know what
good.
yet. We'll figure it out when we get there.
We'll get there.
Okay.
Bye,
Good night, everybody.
everybody.
Hang on. Oops. There we go. Yeah, really messy.